How to achieve these vintage inspired looks on a budget. Welcome to my crafting channel. I'm Alana from Upcycling NZ. This is some newsprint paper. It's quite thick and quite aged, and I'm taking soup cans. I'll measure the length of the soup can and I'm going to measure the paper up and rip it along a ruler so that the piece I'm left with will go all the way around the can. I'll then take some white glue or PVA glue. You can use Mod Podge for this. And I'm putting a nice even coat around the can. I'm just lining that up with the seam of the can to make sure it goes on straight. Just continue your way around the can and I'm pressing the paper into those grooves with the paintbrush. I'm getting a nice layer of glue coated all over the can while I'm doing this, and the coat of glue on the outside will provide a seal to the paper. I've made heaps of these, and I've also made a couple with some writing paper which also was aged. I've also taken some pages from an old book. These are the blank pages. And I'm using some black chalk paint on a piece of glass and I'm spreading that paint very evenly across the surface so that I can use that as a stamp pad. The stamps I'm using today are all French advertising stamps. I'm placing them so there's a bit of space around each stamp. And in between I'm just refreshing the paint on the stamp pad. I check the back of the stamp each time and can see if I've missed any areas with the paint. I have to apologise if I'm a bit nasal today. There was a flu going around at work that I picked up. If you want to make the stamps a bit bigger, you can add little designs above and below each stamp. And once they're dry, I'm going to use a ruler again and I'll rip those down in size till each becomes a label. And with mixing up the stamps I create quite a few unique different looking labels. I've curved the corner on some of these and I'll take some antiquing wax and a damp sponge and I'm taking most of the wax off the sponge and just gently applying it around the edges of each of the labels. This gives them a wonderful vintage look. You can buy a scrapbooking product that does this, but you'll find that doing it with antiquing wax, the wax goes a very long way and it will be much more cost effective. Once the tins are dry, you can see that the metal starts to seep through the paper a little, adding to that aged effect, and by adding some more antiquing wax to the bottom and top edges of the cans gives it this fantastically aged look. Now I can add my labels to the cans and I'll use PVA glue again and decoupage those on. I did a test run on another can earlier using a thinner paper, but I found when I was pressing into the grooves of the can with the paintbrush that it was actually tearing, so it's definitely better to use a thicker paper for this. And I just love the way these labels look on these cans. You can use the same technique on bottles and jars and storage containers and with different sized tin cans. Next I'm taking some soft pliable wire and I'm cutting it between 15 to 20 centimetres long. I'm cutting 4 of these. I'm drilling holes close to the top of the can on either side. And just ensure that your drill bit is slightly larger than the wire that you're using. You can make holes with a larger nail and a hammer if you need to. Now I'm just shaping that wire until I'm happy with where the handle's going to go, and I'm just bending the ends in with some pliers so that they slide into those holes. Now that I'm happy with the shape and size of that, I'll remove it again, and I'm just going to duplicate that and make one of these for each of the cans that I'm going to have in this set. When they're completed, I'm going to paint these with an acrylic exterior paint, which is almost black, but it has a very brown tint to it. And I'm going to paint the handles. And very carefully I'll do the top rim of the cans. You'll find it's easier to do if you level your paintbrush on the same level as your cans. I'll also paint the bottoms and bottom rims of these cans. These are going to require 2 coats, so let this first coat dry and then add a second coat. When these are completed, you can use them for any number of things. They'd be very cute with little succulents or cactuses in them. You can put pens and pencils. I'll probably use this set for a knife, fork and spoon set, which would look great for outdoor entertaining. So when they're dry, I've just bent the ends of the wires up and I've finished my little caddies. For an extra layer of protection, I'm using a Rust-Oleum clear coat in a matte finish, and I'm just giving that a coat on the outside. This is a sealer coat that won't change the appearance of the cans. For the rest of these, I'm going to use twine to make the handles, and you won't need to drill holes for this technique. And I'm taking 3 lengths, again a bit longer than I need to make the handle, probably more like 20 to 25 centimetres long, and I'll tie a knot in one end. Trim that off and then plait the 3 pieces of twine, creating a rope for the handle. This doesn't take too long once you're in the swing of it. I'm just checking again to make sure I've got it at the length that I want before I tie a knot in the other end and trim off the excess. If you didn't want to plait your twine, you could use a single strand for this. You'd still have to tie a knot in each end though. So now that I've got that ready, I'm going to take another piece of twine and I'm just holding that in the centre and wrapping it around both ends of that plaited piece and trapping that inside my winded twine, and I'll go around about 3 times. I've left a tail at each end long enough to tie a bow, and then I'll pull that really tight and tie a knot to trap the handle ends into the can. Then I can tie a bow and trim off the excess. And to finish this, I'm just going to pull the handles up to the knot, position it where I want it, and I'm just going to hot glue down the bow so it sits nicely the way I want it on the front of the can. Using this technique, you'll find that the handle is very secure on the top of the can there, and it will not come loose. I'm just going to burn off any excess fibres from the twine. And I've done some of these cans with bows, and some of them I just cut off close to the knot. And these are just so adorable. You can use these for single can gifts with fudge or cookies wrapped in cellophane, lollies wrapped in cellophane. Again, I'm going to put a Rust-Oleum clear coat on these. I wouldn't put candles in these because of the twine handle, but for the metal handle ones you could definitely use candles. For this next project, I've used this potted meat jar for inspiration, and I'm taking, these are cat food tins and tuna tins, little tiny ones, and they fit tea light candles in them perfectly. So I'm taking some white acrylic based enamel paint. This paint has a nice shine to it, and it'll mimic that ceramic look of the potted meat pots. I'm also going to do a couple of slightly larger tins in the same technique. This paint had excellent coverage, so I only needed to give each of the tins 2 coats. Allow the paint to dry really well in between coats. Once those have dried completely, I'm going to take that piece of glass again and some black chalk paint and spread that out on the glass to create a stamp pad again. I'll use my narrow stamps for these. And when you apply them to your tin, make sure that you are holding it firmly in place while you press, and make sure that all of the areas have contact with the tin. Some of my stamps were a little bit larger than the tins, so I'm just inking up the top part of the stamp and still achieved a similar result. And these are now ready to add tea light candles. For the next project, I have this old silver tarnished tray that I got from a thrift store, and I'm going to give it a quick coat of Rust-Oleum matte finish, and that will just help the paint to adhere to it. I'm using the white enamel acrylic paint again. It's a water-based enamel, and I'm painting all of the inside of the tray, and then I'm going to go around the edges, leaving the top rim of the tray and some of the design elements around the side unpainted. If you make a mistake at this point, you can just wipe it off with a wet wipe and redo it. So I can see that this is going to require at least 2 coats, and I ended up doing 3 on this tray. Once those 3 coats had dried completely, I'm taking a stencil, which is also a French advertising design, and I'm taking some masking tape and just pinning that down on the 4 edges. I'm going to use black chalk paint on this stencil. The brush I'm going to use for this has quite a flat base to it, and it's a hard bristle brush, so I'm not putting too much paint on it, and I'm just dabbing that from above all the way around the stencil. Don't brush it or it will bleed, and if you put too much paint on the brush, it'll bleed. So I've just removed that. There was a couple of little places that I needed to touch up, and I'm just touching it up with the white paint again. The tray will need a good coat of Rust-Oleum clear coat in the matte finish, mainly because you'll likely be putting things on the tray. It won't be food safe though. So just before I do the final reveal on my projects today, if you are into muscle cars, I've just added a little video in here that'll be right up your alley. So this is my brother, one of my brothers. I've got 5 of them. This is one of my brothers, Craig.
Hey, how you doing?
And this is his new vehicle. What did you call it, Craig?
It's Cookie Monster.
Cookie Monster.
Yeah, an H fuel. And yeah, it's a 2010 Dodge Challenger RT Classic. So it's a new car, made to look old. They come with the chrome mags. It's got the scat pack, which is big exhaust, extra cams, big block headers and that on it. And yeah, it's basically like the new Mustangs. New car, look old. So it's got 70s stripes, 70s style sunroof, 70s mags, colour match spoiler and the old school lights, and old school dial interior. And you can get any colour interior you like as long as it's black. And got the good old 5.7 litre Hemi. And you can even, when you see people checking out your car, press the button and she'll start up.
Like Christine.
Yeah, she's got the bigger brakes, and it's got the with the bumblebee on the side says it's the track pack. So RT's for road and track, or if you're a Dodge guy, rapid transport. And then it's got the TA scat pack, which is the track attack scat pack as well. And I got the race wheels for it at home as well, the big flat wheels. Pop the hood, everyone wants to see a Hemi.
Yep. Damn.
It's got little race pedals, chrome Mopar shifter, and you can drive it like a manual as well. So it's all shift fitted to drive manual as well. Old school 70s fuel filler, lock on and it's got a coarser exhaust. And the guy had a specialist tow bar made in the States for towing his old school caravan. She's got the full parts for you. Okay, Manta!
Very nice.
Heated seats when it's cold. Yeah.
And does it make you feel 6 inches taller?
Yeah. They don't call them a penis extension for nothing.